When the Queen of Atlanta's bridal scene loses everything, the last person she ever noticed, her janitor, becomes the one man who can help her rebuild. But success comes at a price, and love might cost her everything. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Windsor Bridal Boutique, casting a golden glow on the pristine white marble floors. Charlotte Wins, or stood in the center of her showroom, arms crossed, watching as her assistant struggled to position a mannequin wearing a $12,000 designer wedding gown. "Higher on the left, Melissa. Can't you see it's uneven?" Charlotte's voice was sharp, her blue eyes critical. At 27, she had already established herself as Atlanta's premier bridal consultant, catering to the daughters of the city's elite. "Sorry, Ms. Windsor," Melissa mumbled, adjusting the display with trembling hands. Charlotte checked her watch, a gift from her father when the boutique opened 2 years ago. "The Pearsons will be here in 20 minutes. Their daughter's wedding is the social event of the season, and they specifically requested me." She smoothed her already perfect blonde bob. "Make sure the champagne is chilled." As Melissa scurried away, Charlotte noticed a dark smudge on the floor near the entrance. Her jaw tightened. She marched to Teehee back office and grabbed the phone. "This is Charlotte Windsor. The flaws in the main showroom are unacceptable. Send someone immediately to fix it." An hour later, while Charlotte was charming Mrs. Pearson with promises of a custom-designed gown that would make her daughter the most envied bride in Atlanta, she noticed a tall figure quietly working near the entrance. The night janitor had been called in during the day, an inconvenience she would address later. The man kept his head down, methodically moving his mop across the marble floors. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with skin the color of burnished mahogany. Charlotte frowned. He should have finished by now. When the Pearsons finally left, having committed to the most expensive package the boutique offered, Charlotte allowed herself a satisfied smile. Her father would be pleased. The Windsor name continued to mean something in this city. "Charlotte E., darling." The voice of her mother, Victoria Windsor, cut through the quiet showroom. Victoria glided in, impeccably dressed in a cream Chanel suit, her silver blonde hair swept into an elegant updo. "I've come to take you to lunch at the club." Charlotte felt the familiar tension in her shoulders that always appeared when her mother was near. Victoria Windsor had high standards, standards Charlotte had spent her life trying to meet. "Let me grab my purse," Charlotte said, heading toward her office. "What is that man doing here during business hours?" "A cleaning emergency," Charlotte replied tightly. "He'll be gone soon." Victoria's perfectly painted lips curved in a slight frown. "You should speak to the service company. These people should know their place." As they were about to leave, Charlotte turned to the Janitor. "Make sure everything is spotless before you go, and use the service entrance next time." The man looked up briefly. His eyes, a deep, warm brown, met hers for just a second before he nodded silently and returned to his work. At the Piedmont Club, Charlotte picked at her salad while her mother chatted about the upcoming charity gala. "The Hendersons' daughter hired that new wedding planner from New York," Victoria said, disapproval clear in her tone. "You need to stay ahead, Charlotte. Your father didn't invest in that boutique for you to lose clients to outsiders." "I'm not losing clients, Mother," Charlotte said defensively. "I just signed the Pearsons this morning." "Good, but you can't rest on your laurels. Remember what I always say, in our world you're either rising or falling," Charlotte finished, having heard the phrase countless times growing up in the Windsor mansion. That evening, Charles Ott stayed late at the boutique reviewing vendor contracts. The wedding season was approaching, and everything needed to be perfect. Around 9 p.m., she heard the quiet click of the service door opening. The night janitor had arrived for his regular shift. Charlotte barely looked up as he moved silently around the showroom, emptying trash bins and dusting surfaces. The next few hours passed in tense silence. Charlotte's frustration grew as she discovered discrepancies in the latest shipment from her Italian fabric supplier. She would need to make calls tomorrow, but it might delay the Pearson gown. As stress mounted, the sound of soft humming reached her ears. The janitor was mopping near the fitting rooms, a quiet melody escaping his lips as he worked. The sound grated on Charlotte's already frayed nerves. She stood up abruptly, marching across the showroom. "Excuse me," she snapped. "I'm trying to work her E." The man stopped immediately, his expression unreadable. "I don't pay the cleaning service for musical entertainment," Charlotte continued, her voice cold. "People like you don't belong in places like this. Just keep the floor clean." He didn't respond, just nodded and returned to his work in silence. Charlotte felt a twinge of something, perhaps guilt, but pushed it aside. She had a business to run. She couldn't worry about the feelings of the cleaning staff. 3 weeks later, Charlotte's carefully constructed world began to show its first cracks. "What do you mean discontinued?" Charlotte paced her office, phone pressed to her ear. "We have 6 brides expecting that lace for their gowns." The news from her Italian supplier was devastating. They were shutting down production due to financial troubles, and her exclusive lace order would not be fulfilled. Charlotte spent the entire day calling alternative suppliers, but the timeline was impossible. She would need to call brides and explain the delay. The following day brought worse news. "Ms. Windsor," her accountant's voice was grave over the phone. "There's a problem with your tax filings from last year. The IRS is questioning several large deductions." "That's impossible," Charlotte insisted. "My father's financial team handled all of that." "Well, they're saying they didn't, and there's an audit schedule, for next month." Charlotte's hands trembled as she called her father. Richard Windsor had provided the initial investment for her boutique, along with the connections that ensured its immediate success among Atlanta's elite. "Daddy, there's been some mistake with the taxes." "No mistake, Charlotte." Her father's voice was cold in a way she had never heard directed at her before. "I've been looking into the boutique's finances, and I don't like what I see. You've been careless with my investment." "What? That's not true. The boutique is doing well." "Not well enough. Your mother tells me you're losing clients to competition. And now this tax situation." He paused. "I'm pulling my funding, Charlotte." The words hit her like a physical blow. "You can't do that. The boutique is mine." "The money is mine," he corrected. "It's time you learned there are consequences to poor management. Figure it out on your own." The line went dead, and Charlotte stood frozen, phone still pressed to her ear. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of mounting disasters. Without her father's financial backing, vendors demanded immediate payment. 2 designers pulled their dresses from her boutique. The Pearsons cancelled their order after hearing rumors of trouble. Charlotte's so-called friends stopped returning her calls once word spread that Richard Windsor had withdrawn his support. Her assistant Melissa quit without notice, leaving only a terse email about a toxic work environment. One evening, Charlotte sat alone in her office, reviewing the mounting bills. The boutique would be bankrupt within a month unless something changed. She had tried calling her father again, but he refused to speak to her. Her mother had only said, "This is a lesson you need to learn, Charlotte." A lesson in what? Failure? Humiliation? As the reality of her situation sank in, Charlotte felt tears welling up. She had always prided herself on her strength, her composure. Windsor's didn't cry, but alone in her darkened boutique, the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. She moved to the showroom, sank down onto the floor among the beautiful gowns that might never find their brides, and finally let the tears come. She didn't hear the service door open, didn't notice the quiet footsteps approach, aching until a voice spoke. "Ms. Windsor, are you all right?" Charlotte looked up, hastily wiping her tears. The night janitor stood a few feet away, concern evident on his face. "I'm fine," she said automatically, trying to summon her usual imperious tone but failing miserably. Just cleaning the floor." The absurdity of her words hung in the air between them. She was sitting on the floor in a $2,000 dress, mascara streaking her cheeks. To her surprise, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "That's usually my job." The gentle humor in his voice caught her off guard. In the 2 years he had cleaned her boutique, she realized, she had never really looked at him, never noticed the quiet intelligence in his eyes or the dignified way he carried himself. "I'm sorry," she said, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. "I don't even know your name." "Isaiah," he replied. "Isaiah Brooks." An awkward silence fell between them. Charlotte suddenly felt ashamed of how she had treated him, this man who had worked in her boutique for years and whose name she had never bothered to learn. "The lights were out," Isaiah said finally. "I thought everyone had gone home." Charlotte laughed bitterly. "Soon that might be permanent. The boutique is failing." She didn't know why she was telling him this. Perhaps because there was no one else left to tell. Isaiah looked around the showroom thoughtfully. "Maybe I can help." Charlotte stared at him, confusion replacing her tears. "Help? How could you possibly help?" Instead of answering, he walked to her desk and picked up the stack of invoices she had been reviewing. His eyes scanned the pages quickly, with a practiced ease that surprised her. "Your markup on these imported fabrics is too low," he said matter-of-factly. "And you're being overcharged by this vendor here." He pointed to another invoice. "I used to work in logistics and procurement. I know what these materials should cost." Charlotte stood up slowly, her mind struggling to process this new information. "You worked in logistics? But you're a janitor." Isaiah finished for her, his expression unreadable. "Yes, now I am. But before that, I had a different life." Charlotte approached her desk cautiously, as if afraid this glimpse of hope might disappear. "Why would you want to help me? I haven't been kind to you." Isaiah set the invoices down and looked at her directly. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Ms. Windsor, even you." There was no judgment in his voice, no resentment for her past behavior, just a simple statement of fact. Charlotte felt something shift inside her, a crack in the foundation of everything she had been raised to believe about people like Isaiah, about her own worth beyond her family name and money. "I don't know if the boutique can be saved," she admitted, vulnerability feeling strange and uncomfortable. "Let's find out," Isaiah replied, pulling out a chair for her. "Show me everything." Under the soft glow of the boutique's emergency lights, Charlotte Windsor and Isaiah Brooks bent their heads over financial statements and vendor contracts, beginning a partnership that would change both their lives in ways neither could imagine. As the night deepened, Charlotte found herself seeing the boutique and herself through new eyes, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something that had been missing for too long. Hope. Morning sunlight streamed through the boutique windows as Charlotte unlocked the front door. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. Last night's conversation with Isaiah had lasted until nearly 3 in the morning. His calm, methodical approach to her financial problems had given her something to hold on to. The boutique was still silent and empty. No assistant to greet her, no appointments scheduled. Charlotte set her purse on the counter and pulled out the notebook where she and Isaiah had outlined their first steps to save the business. Her knock at the service entrance startled her. Isaiah stood there, not in his usual cleaning uniform, but in dark jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt. He looked different, more confident, his shoulders squared. "You came," Charlotte said, unable to hide her surprise. "I said I would." Isaiah stepped inside, carrying a laptop bag. "I have the morning off from my other job." "Other job?" "I clean 3 different businesses," he explained. "Your boutique is just my evening work." Charlotte felt a wave of shame. She had never considered that he might have other responsibilities, other parts to his life. "Thank you for coming," she said, the words still unfamiliar on her tongue. "I wasn't sure if you meant what you said last night." Isaiah's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held a quiet determination. "I don't say things I don't mean, Ms. Windsor." They settled at the small table in her office, and Isaiah opened his laptop. "First, we need to renegotiate with your vendors. I've drafted some emails based on the invoices we reviewed." Charlotte read over his work, impressed by his professional tone and knowledge of the industry. "Where did you learn all this?" Isaiah hesitated before answering. "I had my own business once. Import, export. It was small, but successful for a while." "What happened?" Charlotte asked. A shadow crossed his face. "Life happened. Bad investment, worse partner. But that's not important now." He redirected her attention to the screen. "What matters is that we can cut your costs by at least 30% if these vendors agree to our terms." For the next several hours they worked side by side. Charlotte watched in amazement as Isaiah methodically tackled each problem. He knew exactly which vendors might be flexible, which contracts could be renegotiated, where costs could be trimmed without sacrificing quality. The tax issue is more complicated, Isaiah admitted as they reviewed the AUDIT notice. But I know someone who might help, a former client who's now an accountant. Why are you doing this? Charlotte asked suddenly. Last month I told you that people like you don't belong in places like this. I was cruel, I didn't even know your name. Isaiah looked at her for a long moment. Everyone has bad days. That wasn't a bad day. That was who I was. Charlotte's honesty surprised even herself. The person my parents raised me to be. Isaiah closed the laptop. My grandmother used to say that a crisis shows us who we really are. Maybe this is your chance to find out. Before Charlotte could respond, the boutique phone rang. It was Mrs. Pearson, calling to confirm that their order was indeed cancelled. Please, Mrs. Pearson, Charlotte said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I understand your concerns, but I assure you we can still deliver your daughter's dream gown on schedule. Isaiah watched as Charlotte negotiated. When she hung up, she was smiling. They're giving us another chance. If I can show them a sample of the new lace we'll use by next week, they'll reinstate the order. That's great, Isaiah said. But where will you get the lace if your Italian supplier is closed? Charlotte's smile faded. I don't know. All the quality suppliers I know have months-long waiting lists. I might know someone, Isaiah said after a moment. From my import days. A small family business in Belgium. Their lace is exquisite, but they usually only work with established clients. Can you contact them? Isaiah nodded. I'll try. But Charlotte, even if they agree, we'll need to come up with the deposit. Your accounts are nearly empty. Charlotte twisted the diamond bracelet on her wrist, another gift from her father. I have a few things I can sell. The next morning, Charlotte arrived at the boutique with a significantly lighter jewelry box, but enough cash to place orders with the new vendors Isaiah had found. He was already there, having let himself in through the service entrance. I heard back from the lace maker, he said as she walked in. They'll send samples, but only because I vouched for you personally. Charlotte stared at him. You did that? After how I've treated the people who work for me? Isaiah shrugged. I believe in second chances, and I believe you can be better than you were. Over the next week, Charlotte discovered sides of herself she never knew existed. Without her assistant, she found herself answering phones, sweeping floors, even cleaning bathrooms. Isaiah showed her how to properly mop the marble floors one evening, and she'd laughed at her own clumsiness. My mother would die if she could see me now, Charlotte said, wringing out the mop. Why? Isaiah asked simply. The question caught her off guard. Windsors don't clean floors, we hire people to do that. And yet the floor gets just as clean when you do it, Isaiah observed. His quiet wisdom often left her speechless. Each day, she found herself looking forward to his arrival, to the peaceful hours they spent working side by side. In the quiet of the empty boutique, with no audience to perform for, Charlotte began to relax into a version of herself she actually liked. The Belgian lace arrived, even more beautiful than Charlotte had hoped. With Isaiah's help, she prepared a presentation for the Pearsons that emphasized the exclusivity and quality of the new materials. You should handle the meeting, Isaiah said as they prepared. Show them you're still in control. I'd feel better if you were there, Charlotte admitted. Isaiah shook his head. They're not ready to see. Samia's your business partner. Trust me on this. Charlotte wanted to argue but knew he was right. Atlanta's old money families like the Pearsons would question why she was working with Ask the Help. The thought made her uncomfortable now, where once she would have had the same reaction. The meeting with the Pearsons went better than expected. They were charmed by the Belgian lace and impressed by Charlotte's detailed knowledge of costs and timelines. All information Isaiah had helped her prepare. We're so relieved, Mrs. Pearson said. There were such troubling rumors about the boutique closing. Just a minor restructuring, Charlotte assured her. In fact, we're introducing some exclusive new designers next month. This was news to Charlotte herself, but an idea had been forming in her mind, one she was eager to discuss with Isaiah. When she returned to the boutique, flushed with success, she found him in the back room, carefully repairing the hem on a sample gown. "You can sew?" Charlotte asked, watching his large hands make surprisingly delicate stitches. "My grandmother taught me," he said without looking up. "She was a seamstress." Charlotte sat beside him, watching his methodical work. "The Pearsons are back on board. You were right about the lace." Isaiah nodded, his focus still on the needle and thread. "Good. I told them we're introducing new design artists," Charlotte continued. "But I've been thinking, what if we made our own line? Simple, elegant gowns at prices more people could afford." Now Isaiah looked up, surprise evident in his eyes. "That's not exactly the Windsor bridal brand. Maybe the brand needs to change," Charlotte said. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about finding out who I really am. I don't think I'm the person who only caters to the wealthiest brides. And your parents? What would they think of this new direction?" Charlotte sighed. "They'll hate it. But the boutique is on the brink of failure anyway. What do I have to lose?" "Everything they gave you," Isaiah said quietly. "Their approval, their world." Their eyes met, and Charlotte felt something shift between them, an understanding that went beyond business partnership. "Maybe I don't need their world anymore," she whispered. The moment was interrupted by the ringing OF the boutique phone. Charlotte answered to find her mother on the line. "Charlotte, darling, I've heard the most interesting news. The Pearsons say you've sorted out your little business problem." Charlotte tensed at her mother's condescending tone. "It wasn't little, Mother, but yes, I'm working on solutions." "Wonderful. Then you'll be joining us for dinner at the club tonight. The Harrises will be there. You remember their son Blake? He's just taken over his father's law firm. Such a suitable match for you." Charlotte glanced at Isaiah, who was deliberately focusing on his sewing, though she could tell by the set of his shoulders that he was listening. "I can't tonight, Mother. I'm working." Victoria's displeasure was palpable even through the phone. "Working? On what? The boutique is closed in the evenings." "I'm developing a new line," Charlotte said firmly. "It's important." After a chilly goodbye, Harlot hung up and turned to Isaiah. "She'll be furious." "Does that bother you?" he asked, his eyes meeting hers. "Less than it would have a month ago," Charlotte admitted. That evening they ordered Chinese takeout and spread fabric samples across the showroom floor. Isaiah sketched design ideas on a notepad, while Charlotte calculated costs. "This one," she said, pointing to a simple, elegant design. "It's beautiful but wouldn't cost a fortune to make." Isaiah nodded. "The silhouette is classic. It would flatter many body types." "How do you know so much about wedding gowns?" Charlotte asked. A sad smile crossed Isaiah's face. "I was engaged once. My fiancée loved bridal magazines. What happened? She wanted a different life than I could give her after my business failed." His voice was matter-of-fact, but Charlotte could hear the old pain beneath it. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Isaiah looked at really looked at her, and Charlotte felt her heart speed up. Life takes unexpected turns. Sometimes they lead us exactly where we need to be. The words hung between them, full of meaning neither was ready to acknowledge. Over the next 2 weeks, their partnership deepened. Isaiah continued his regular cleaning job, but spent every free hour at the boutique. Together, they created prototypes for the new line, using fabric remnants and Isaiah's surprising skilled needlework. One afternoon, Charlotte was trying to adjust a bodice on a mannequin, growing frustrated as the pins slipped from her fingers. "Here," Isaiah said, coming to stand behind her. His hands gently covered hers, guiding her fingers. "Like this." Charlotte froze at his closeness, suddenly aware of his breath on her neck, the warmth of his body just inches from hers. His hands were strong but gentle, calloused from years of work. "You don't have to be perfect," he said softly. "Just honest." Charlotte turned her head slightly, their faces now inches apart. "I don't know how to be anything but perfect. It's what I was raised to be. And how's that working out for you?" There was a gentle humor in his voice that made her smile despite herself. "Not great," she admitted, "but I'm learning." The bell above the door chimed, breaking the moment. Charlotte stepped away from Isaiah quickly, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. A delivery man entered with a large bouquet of roses. "Delivery for Charlotte Windsor." The card read, "Heard about your troubles. Let me help. Dinner tomorrow? Blake Harris." Charlotte hadn't seen Blake Harris in years, though their mothers had been trying to match them since childhood. He was handsome, wealthy, and from the right family, everything her parents wanted for her. "An admirer?" Isaiah asked, his voice carefully neutral. "An opportunity, according to my mother," Charlotte replied, setting the flowers aside. "Blake Harris is exactly the kind of man Windsors are supposed to marry." "And is that what you want?" Charlotte looked at him, at this man who had shown her more kindness and taught her more about herself in 2 weeks than anyone in her privileged world had in her entire life. "No," she said simply. "It's not." That night, after Isaiah left, Charlotte sat alone in the boutique, thinking about how much had changed. The business was still precarious, but orders were slowly coming in. More importantly, she was changing. The woman who had sneered at Isaiah for humming while he worked now found herself looking forward to his quiet presence, his gentle wisdom, his rare but wonderful smile. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Don't forget dinner with the Harrises tomorrow. Wear the blue dress. Blake always liked you in blue." Charlotte typed a response. "Can't make it. Working on new designs." Her mother's reply was immediate. "This obsession with saving the boutique has gone far enough. Your father and I are concerned." Charlotte didn't respond. Instead, she walked to the mannequin where she and Isaiah had been working and touched the simple, beautiful gown they had created together. It represented everything her boutique could be, if she was brave enough to forge her own path. The next morning, Charlotte arrived early to find her parents waiting outside the boutique. Victoria was impeccably dressed as always, her disapproval evident in every line of her body. Richard Windsor stood beside her, stern and imposing in his tailored suit. "Charlotte," her father began as she unlocked the door, "your mother tells me you've been neglecting your social obligations to play shopkeeper." "I'm not playing, Daddy," Charlotte replied, ushering them inside. "I'm saving my business." "Our business," he corrected. "My investment." "Which you pulled," Charlotte reminded him, surprising herself with her calm defiance. Victoria wandered around the showroom, frowning at the fabric samples and design sketches scattered about. "What is all this? These aren't Windsor bridal gowns." "They will be," Charlotte said. "A new line for brides with smaller budgets." Her parents exchanged alarmed glances. "Smaller budgets?" Richard echoed. "Charlotte, this boutique was established to serve a specific clientele, our kind of people." "There aren't enough of our kind of people to keep the doors open," Charlotte explained. "I've done the math." Victoria picked up one of Isaiah's sketches. "And who is helping you with this misguided venture? These aren't your drawings." Before Charlotte could answer, the service door opened and Isaiah entered. He stopped short at the sight of the Windsors, his expression carefully neutral. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't realize you had company." Richard Windsor looked from Isaiah to Charlotte, his face darkening. "Who is this man?" Charlotte took a deep breath, standing straighter. "This is Isaiah Brooks. He's helping me redesign the business model." "The janitor?" Victoria's voice rose in disbelief. "Charlotte, have you lost your mind?" Isaiah remained still, his dignity intact despite Victoria's disdain. "Isaiah has experience in business management and design," Charlotte said firmly. "He's been instrumental in keeping this boutique from failing completely." Richard approached Isaiah, sizing him up. "I don't know what game you're playing, but my daughter doesn't need help from someone like you." "Daddy," Charlotte stepped between them, "Isaiah is the only person who offered to help when everyone else, including you, abandoned me." "We didn't abandon you," Victoria insisted. "We were teaching you responsibility. By pulling all financial support without warning. By leaving me to fail." Charlotte felt years of resentment bubbling to the surface. "That's not teaching, that's punishment. Perhaps I should go," Isaiah said quietly. "No." Charlotte's voice was firm. "This is as much your project now as mine. You belong here." The words hung in the air, a direct challenge to everything her parents believed about people like Isaiah Brooks. Richard's face hardened. "Charlotte, a word in private." They moved to her office, closing the door behind them. Through the glass, Charlotte could see Isaiah and her mother in the showroom, a palpable tension between them. "What exactly is going on here?" Richard demanded. "First you neglect your social obligations, then you talk about cheapening the Windsor brand, and now you are defending the janitor." "His name is Isaiah," Charlotte said. "And yes, I am defending him because he deserves it. He's smart and talented and kind." Richard studied his daughter's face. "Oh God, you have feelings for this man." Charlotte didn't deny it, though she hadn't fully admitted it to herself until that moment. "This stops now," Richard said flatly. "I'll reinstate the funding for the boutique. I'll handle the tax issue, but that man goes back to mopping floors or he goes altogether." "You can't dictate who I work with," Charlotte protested. "I can when it's my money." Richard's voice was cold. "You can have your business back or him, not both." In the showroom, Victoria was speaking to Isaiah in low, urgent tones. When Charlotte and Richard emerged from the office, Isaiah's face was expressionless, but Charlotte could see tension in every line of his body. "We're leaving now," Victoria announced. "Charlotte, we expect you at dinner tonight. Blake is looking forward to seeing you." After her parents left, an uncomfortable silence filled the boutique. "What did my mother say to you?" Charlotte finally asked. Isaiah was carefully folding fabric samples, his movements deliberate. "Nothing I haven't heard before." "Isaiah." "She offered me money to leave," he said quietly, "to stop confusing you." Charlotte felt sick. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be." As he's just protecting her daughter as she sees it. From what? From someone who actually cares about me. From someone who sees me as more than a Windsor. Isaiah looked at her then, his eyes filled with an emotion Charlotte couldn't quite name. "Is that how you see me, Charlotte? As someone who cares about you?" The question hung between them, laden with possibilities neither had dared acknowledge. "Yes," she whispered. "And I think I care about you too. More than I should." Isaiah took a step toward her, then stopped himself. "Your parents made their position clear. They'll restore your funding if I'm gone. I don't care about their money anymore." "You should," Isaiah said seriously. "This boutique is your dream." "Dreams can change," Charlotte said, moving closer to him. "People can change. I have." For a moment, she thought he might reach for her. Instead, he took a step back. "You need time to think," he said. "Your parents are offering you everything you've worked for. Don't throw that away because you're grateful to me." "This isn't gratitude," Charlotte insisted. Isaiah picked up his bag. "Think about it, Charlotte, really think. I'll come back tomorrow, and if you still feel the same way..." He left the sentence unfinished, a promise and a question all at once. After he left, Charlotte sat alone among the half-finished designs and fabric samples. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from her mother about dinner, from Blake Harris asking about their date, from old friends suddenly interested in reconnecting now that rumors of the boutique's recovery were spreading. Charlotte ignored them all, her mind on Isaiah's words. "You can have your business back, or him, not both." As evening fell, she made her decision. She would not be at the Harris dinner tonight. Instead, she would stay and finish the prototype of their first gown, a symbol of the new beginning she was choosing for herself. Outside the boutique window, the Atlanta traffic rushed by, unaware of the quiet revolution happening inside. Charlotte Windsor, heiress and business owner, sat cross-legged on the floor, needle in hand, sewing her own future, one stitch at a time. The next morning, Charlotte woke on the small couch in her office. She had worked late into the night, finishing the wipe gown. Her neck was stiff, her fingers pricked and sore, but there was a satisfaction she had never felt before. This creation was truly hers. No family money, no hired designers, just her own vision brought to life with Isaiah's guidance. Her phone showed 27 missed calls, 15 from her mother, 5 from Blake Harris, the rest from old friends wondering why she had missed the dinner. Charlotte ignored them all and went to the small bathroom to freshen up. She was arranging the gown on a mannequin when she heard the service door open. Isaiah entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He stopped when he saw her, his eyes taking in her rumpled clothes and the finished gown. "You stayed all night," he said, handing her a coffee. Charlotte took a grateful sip. I wanted to finish it, to prove I could. Isaiah circled the mannequins slowly, examining their creation. The gown was simpler than anything Windsor Bridal had ever offered, a clean silhouette of ivory satin with delicate lace accents at the neckline and hem. Beautiful, elegant, but a fraction of the cost of their usual designs. "It's perfect," he said finally. "We're perfect," Charlotte replied. "Together." She set down her coffee and faced him directly. "I've made my decision, Isaiah. I don't want my parents' money or their approval if it means giving up what we are building here." Isaiah's express ion was guarded. "Are you sure? Once that door closes, Charlotte—" "I've lived my entire life trying to be the daughter they wanted," she interrupted. "Always perfect, always appropriate, never stepping out of line. For what? To be alone when things got tough? To marry someone like Blake Harris and host charity galas for the next 40 years? She moved closer to him. "You asked me yesterday if I see you as someone who cares about me. I do, but it's more than that. You saw me at my worst, entitled, cruel, dismissive, and you still offered to help. You showed me a better version of myself." Isaiah set down his own coffee, his eyes never leaving hers. "Your parents aren't entirely wrong, you know. There will be consequences if we—" He gestured between them, unable to find the right words. "If we what?" Charlotte pressed, taking another step toward him. "If we acknowledge this isn't just about business anymore." "Ra," he said quietly. The air between them seemed charged with possibilities. Charlotte's heart hammered in her chest as Isaiah slowly raised his hand to her face, his fingers gently brushing her cheek. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "I don't want you to stop," she replied. When his lips met hers, Charlotte felt something inside her break open, as if she had been living her life behind glass and was finally feeling the world directly. His kiss was gentle at first, then deeper as she responded, her hands moving to his shoulders. The bell above the front door chimed, shattering the moment. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers as Melissa, Charlotte's former assistant, walked in. "Charlotte?" "Oh." Melissa stopped short, her eyes darting between Charlotte and Isaiah. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize—" "It's fine," Charlotte said quickly, smoothing her hair. "What can I help you with, Melissa?" Melissa looked uncomfortable. "I heard the boutique was doing better. I thought maybe— well, I need my job back. The new place isn't working out." Charlotte glanced at Isaiah, who had stepped back, his face expressionless once again. She remembered how harshly she had treated Melissa in the past, how the young woman had left without notice because of the toxic work environment. "Things are different now," Charlotte said carefully. "The boutique is going in a new direction." "I can adapt," Melissa insisted. "And I heard you don't have any staff left." Charlotte considered. They did need help, especially with the new line launching. "Let's talk in my office." As they walked away, Charlotte glanced back at Isaiah. He nodded encouragingly, but she could see the moment between them had passed. Reality had intruded. In her office, Charlotte was direct with Melissa. "I wasn't a good boss before. I was demanding and critical, and I didn't value your work properly." Melissa looked surprised at the admission. "You've changed." "I'm trying to," Charlotte acknowledged. "The boutique is changing too. We're launching a more affordable line alongside our custom designs. It's a risk, but I believe in it." "We?" Melissa asked. "You mean you and the janitor?" The way she said it, with a slight curl of her lip, reminded Charlotte painfully of how she herself would have spoken just weeks ago. "His name is Isaiah Brooks," Charlotte said firmly. "He has experience in business and design, and he's been instrumental in saving this boutique. If you come back, you'll be working with both of us." Melissa's expression was skeptical, but she nodded. "I understand." By the end of the day, Melissa was rehired, the prototype gown was photographed for their new catalogue, and they had scheduled 2 appointments with brides interested in the new line. Things were looking up. But something had shifted between Charlotte and Isaiah. They worked side by side as usual, but a new awareness hummed between them, both exciting and terrifying. The kiss had changed everything. As evening approached, Charlotte found Isaiah in the back room, packaging fabric samples to return to vendors. "About this morning," she began awkwardly. "We should focus on the business," he said, not meeting her eyes. "There's still a lot to do." Charlotte felt a stab of disappointment. "Is that what you want?" Isaiah finally looked at her, his expression conflicted. "What I want isn't always what's best. You're just starting to rebuild your life, Charlotte. Your reputation in this city." "I don't care about my reputation." "You should," he said seriously. "In your world, reputation is currency." "Maybe I don't want to be in that world anymore." Isaiah set down the package he was holding. "Charlotte, I've been here before. When my business was doing well, doors opened for me. When it failed, those same doors slammed shut. I don't want to be the reason doors close for you." Before she could respond, her phone rang. It was Blake Harris. Charlotte silenced it without answering. "That's the third time he's called today," Isaiah observed. "He wants to take me to dinner. My mother's arrangement." "Maybe you should go," Isaiah said, surprising her. "Keep your options open." Charlotte stared at him. "After this morning, you're telling me to date someone else?" "I'm telling you not to burn bridges because of one kiss." His voice was gentle but firm. "Blake Harris can offer you things I can't. Connections, status, acceptance in your parents' world. I told you, I don't care about those things anymore." "You say that now," Isaiah replied. "But what about 6 months from now, a year, when your friends are still whispering behind your back because you chose the janitor?" The words stung, but Charlotte could hear the old pain behind them. Someone had made him feel less than before. Perhaps his former fiancée, who had left when his business failed. "You're more than a janitor, Isaiah. To you, maybe, not to them." He nodded toward the window where outside Atlanta's elite went about their day. "Not to your parents or their friends." Charlotte wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but deep down, she knew he was right. Her world, the world she had been raised in, would never fully accept Isaiah Brooks, no matter his intelligence or character. "So what are you saying?" she asked, her voice small. "That we should pretend this morning never happened?" Isaiah's eyes softened. "I'm saying we should be careful, for both our sakes." 2 days later, Charlotte found herself sitting across from Blake Harris at Bacchanalia, one of Atlanta's most exclusive restaurants. She had finally answered his call, partly to stop her mother's incessant messages, partly because of Isaiah's unexpected encouragement. Blake looked exactly as she remembered, handsome in a conventional way, with his perfectly styled hair and expensive suit. He ordered for both of them without consulting her, and talked at length about his recent promotion at his father's law firm. "Mother says your little shop is having some troubles," he said as their appetizers arrived. "I could look over your contracts if you'd like. Pro bono, of course." He winked as if he'd made a clever joke. "Actually, the boutique is doing well now," Charlotte replied. "We're launching a new line next month." "We?" Blake raised an eyebrow. Charlotte hesitated, remembering Isaiah's warning about burning bridges. "My team and I," she said vaguely. Blake seemed satisfied with this answer and launched into a story about his recent golf trip to Pebble Beach. Charlotte found her mind wandering back to the boutique, to Isaiah. They had worked together all week, professional and focused, neither mentioning the kiss they had shared, but she felt it between them, a current of possibility, of something deeper than business partnership. "Charlotte, are you listening?" Blake's slightly annoyed voice brought her back to the present. "I'm sorry," she said. "It's been a long week." Blake reached across the table and took her hand. "You're working too hard, that's what employees are for. On C, we're together, you won't need to worry about that boutique anymore." Charlotte stared at him. "Once we're together, Blake, this is our first date in years." He chuckled indulgently. "Come on, Charlotte. Our families have been planning this since we were in prep school. It's always been the end game." The casual certainty in his voice made something snap inside her. This was exactly the life she had been programmed to want: a wealthy husband, social statuesse, the approval of her parents. And suddenly, sitting across from Blake Harris, it felt suffocating. "I should go," she said, standing abruptly. "I have early appointments tomorrow." Blake looked confused. "But we haven't had our main course." "I'm not hungry," Charlotte replied, grabbing her purse. "Thank you for dinner." She left him sitting there, mouth agape, and walked out of the restaurant into the warm Atlanta night. Without conscious decision, she found herself driving toward the boutique. It would be closed now, but Isaiah might still be there, finishing his cleaning work. The boutique was dark when she arrived, but she could see a light on in the back room. Charlotte used her key and entered quietly. She found Isaiah sitting at her desk, reviewing their financial projections. He looked up, surprised. "Charlotte, I thought you had a date." "I did. It was terrible." She set her purse down and kicked off her heels, suddenly exhausted. "Blake Harris is exactly the man my parents want for me. Wealthy, connected, utterly boring, and completely convinced of his own importance." A small smile played at the corners of Isaiah's mouth. "That bad?" "Worse," Charlotte groaned, sinking into a chair. "He ordered for me without asking what I wanted. Who does that?" "Someone who's never had to consider what other people want," Isaiah suggested. Charlotte looked at him, really looked at him. In his simple work clothes, with his quiet dignity and thoughtful eyes, Isaiah Brooks was everything Blake Harris was not, and she was tired of pretending she didn't know which man she wanted. "You were right," she said suddenly. Isaiah looked confused. "About what?" "About my world. About how they would see us together." Charlotte leaned forward in her chair. "But you were wrong about something else. You said I might regret choosing you over that world in 6 months or a year." "I won't." Isaiah's expression grew serious. "Charlotte, let me finish," she insisted. "All my life I've done what was expected of me. I was the perfect daughter, the perfect socialite. And where did it get me? Alone in my failing boutique, abandoned by everyone who claimed to care about me." She stood and moved closer to him. "Everyone except you. You saw something in me worth saving when I was at my worst. How could I ever regret choosing someone like that?" Isaiah stood too, his height making her tilt her head back to hold his gaze. "It won't be easy," he warned. "There will be talk." "Let them talk," Charlotte said defiantly. "I'm not ashamed of how I feel about you." The words hung between them, an admission neither had explicitly made until now. "And how do you feel?" Isaiah asked, his voice low. Instead of answering, Charlotte closed the distance between them, her lips finding his in a kiss that said everything words couldn't. This time, there was no hesitation, no interruption. His arms encircled her, drawing her closer as the kiss deepened. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaiah rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that again all week," he admitted. "Me too," Charlotte whispered. That night marked a turning point. They worked late, planning the launch of their new line. But now there were stolen kisses between spreadsheets, fingers intertwined as they reviewed fabric samples. For the first time in her life, Charlotte felt truly seen and valued for herself, not for her name or her family's status. The following weeks passed in a blur of activity. Melissa returned to work, eyebrows raising at the obvious change in Charlotte and Isaiah's relationship, but she kept her opinions to herself. The prototypes for their new airline were completed, and appointments with brides interested in affordable options began to fill the calendar. Charlotte's parents maintained their distance, her mother sending increasingly frosty texts demanding she come to her senses and accept her father's conditions. Charlotte ignored them all, too busy with the boutique and too happy with Isaiah to care. But reality intruded one rainy afternoon when Olivia Prescott, Charlotte's oldest friend and daughter of her mother's best friend, arrived at the boutique unannounced. "Charlotte, darling," Olivia air-kissed her cheeks. "I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Where have you been hiding?" Charlotte gestured around the boutique. "Working. We're launching a new line next week." Olivia glanced around the showroom, her gaze settling on Isaiah, who was helping a bride in the fitting area. "So the rumors are true," she said, her voice dropping to a stage W. "Heisper, you've gone into business with the help." Charlotte stiffened. "Isaiah is my business partner. He has experience in logistics and design." "Oh, I'm sure he has many talents," Olivia replied with a knowing smirk. "But really, Charlotte, what are you thinking? Everyone is talking." "Let them talk," Charlotte said flatly. Olivia's expression grew serious. "It's worse than you think. Your mother is telling everyone you're having some sort of breakdown. Your father is threatening to cut you off completely. No trust fund, no inheritance. A cold weight settled in Charlotte's stomach. Her trust fund would fully mature when she turned 30, giving her access to a substantial sum that had been set aside by her grandparents. She had never thought about it much. It was just part of being a Windsor. But losing it, along with her eventual inheritance, would mean the loss of her financial safety net forever. They can't do that, she said, though she wasn't entirely sure. The trust maybe not, but the inheritance? Absolutely. Olivia touched her arm in a gesture of false sympathy. And it's not just money, Charlotte. No one from our circle will come to this launch of yours. They're all afraid of crossing your parents. Charlotte's heart sank. Without the support of Atlanta's elite, the boutique's revival would be much harder. They had been counting on at least some interest from her usual clientele. Why are you telling me this? Charlotte asked. Because I care about you, Olivia insisted. This little rebellion has gone far enough. Make up with your parents. Fire the janitor, or at least put him back in his place, before it's too late. After Olivia left, Charlotte found herself unable to focus. Everything they had worked for suddenly seemed at risk. Not just the boutique, but her entire future. If her parentess really did cut her off completely. She was still sitting at her desk, lost in thought, when Isaiah found her an hour later. The bride from earlier said yes to the magnolia design, he reported cheerfully. Then, noticing her expression, "What's wrong?" Charlotte hesitated. How could she tell him about Olivia's visit, without making it sound like she cared more about her inheritance than their relationship? "Just tired," she lied. "It's been a long week." Isaiah didn't look convinced, but he didn't press. "Why don't you go home early? I can close up." "Actually, I thought maybe we could have dinner tonight," Charlotte suggested impulsively. "Not here. A real dinner. Somewhere nice." Isaiah's expression turned guarded. "You mean in public? Together?" "Yes," Charlotte said more firmly now. "I'm tired of hiding in the boutique. I want to go on a real date with you." She needed to show herself and him that she wasn't ashamed, that Olivia's warnings couldn't shake her resolve. Isaiah studied her face. "Are you sure? After what your friend said earlier?" Charlotte's eyes widened. "You heard?" "Enough," he admitted. "About rumors and your parents cutting you off." Embarrassment and shame flooded Charlotte. "Isaiah, It's okay," he said quietly. "She's not wrong. People are talking. I've heard the whispers when I come in through the front door now instead of the service entrance. Seen the looks when we're working together." Charlotte felt a surge of protective anger. "I don't care what they think. But you care about your inheritance," Isaiah said, not accusingly, just stating a fact. "Anyone would." "Not as much as I care about you," Charlotte insisted. "About us." Isaiah's expression softened. "Then yes, I'd love to have dinner with you tonight. A real date." They chose a restaurant in Midtown, away from tea. He places Charlotte usually frequented with her parents' crowd. It was a small farm-to-table place, elegant but unpretentious. Charlotte wore a simple blue dress, Isaiah a crisp white shirt and dark pants. They looked like any other couple enjoying a night out, except they weren't. Charlotte felt the subtle glances as they were seated, heard the whispered comments. Word had spread faster than she'd realized. "Ignore them," Isaiah said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "They'll find something else to gossip about soon enough." Charlotte squeezed his hand gratefully. "I'm sorry, I didn't think it would be this obvious." "I did," Isaiah said with a small smile. "The beautiful boutique owner and her janitor? That's a story too good to ignore." The way he said it, with a touch of self-deprecation, broke Charlotte's heart a little. "You're so much more than that," she insisted. "To you," he acknowledged. "And that's enough for me." Their dinner was lovely despite the occasional stares. Isaiah told her more about his former business, an import company specializing in textiles from West Africa, where his father's family had roots. Charlotte shared stories of her childhood, the good parts she rarely talked about, like summers at her grandmother's lake house. As they lingered over dessert, Charlotte felt a deep contentment she had never experienced before. "Th.S. was what it meant to be with someone who valued her for herself, not her name or her connections. The spell was broken when Blake Harris walked in with a group of friends, all people Charlotte had known since childhood. They spotted her immediately, their expressions ranging from shock to amusement to disdain as they took in Isaiah across from her. Blake approached their table, his smile not reaching his eyes. Charlotte, what a surprise. Charlotte Stry gutted in her chair. Blake, this is Isaiah Brooks, my business partner. Blake barely glanced at Isaiah. Business partner? That's what we're calling it now. Charlotte felt her face flush with anger. We're also dating, if that's what you're asking. Blake's condescending laugh drew attention from nearby tables. Dating? Charlotte, be serious. You're a Windsor. He's sitting right here, Isaiah cut in, his voice calm but firm, and can hear you perfectly well. Blake finally looked at Isaiah directly, sizing him up. No offense, man, but you have to know this is temporary. She's slumming it, rebelling against Daddy. It's what rich girls do. Charlotte stood abruptly. We're leaving. Now. Isaiah rose more slowly, his dignity intact despite Blake's insults. Charlotte, it's okay, let's just go. But Charlotte was beyond listening. Years of repressed anger at the entitlement and snobbery of her world CIM pouring out. How dare you speak to him that way? Isaiah has more integrity and intelligence in his little finger than you have in your entire body, Blake Harris. Blake's face darkened. Your parents are right. You have lost your mind. No, Charlotte said firmly. For the first time in my life I've found it. And my heart too. She turned to Isaiah, who was watching her with a mixture of pride and concern. Let's go. Outside in the warm night air, Charlotte was still shaking with fury. I'm so sorry about that. Blake has always been an entitled jerk. Isaiah drew her into his arms, holding her close. You didn't have to defend me, I've heard worse. But you shouldn't have to hear it at all, Charlotte insisted, looking up at him. Especially not from people who claim to be civilized. Isaiah brushed a strand of hair from her face. This is just the beginning, Charlotte. It will get worse before it gets better. I don't care, she said fiercely. I love you, Isaiah Brooks. And nothing, not Blake Harris, not my parents, not this whole city, is going to change that. The words had slipped out without thought, but as soon as she said them, Charlotte knew they were true. She loved him. The realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. Isaiah's eyes widened, then softened. I love you too, he said quietly. More than I ever thought possible. Their key SS under the streetlights was a declaration. To each other and to the world. Whatever came next, they would face it together. But what came next was worse than either could have imagined. The next morning, Charlotte arrived at the boutique to find Melissa waiting anxiously by the door. You need to see this, she said, handing Charlotte her phone. On the screen was a social media post from one of Blake's friends, a photo taken at the restaurant the night before. Charlotte and Isaiah were clearly visible, his arm around her as they left. The caption read, Windsor bridal heiress slums it with the help. Daddy's money not looking so good anymore. Fallen from grace. The post had hundreds of comments, most of them cruel, many from people Charlotte had considered friends. Even worse, several mentioned their UP coming launch, promising to boycott the boutique. It's all over, Melissa said grimly. Every Atlanta society site is running with it. Charlotte felt sick. Not for herself, but for Isaiah, who was being described in the most demeaning terms, and for their business, which might not survive this kind of targeted attack. She tried calling Isaiah, but he didn't answer. When he finally arrived an hour later, his expression was somber. You've seen it, he said, not a question. Charlotte nodded. Isaiah, I'm so sorry. Don't be, he replied. I knew what I was getting into. He hesitated, then added, but maybe we need to rethink some things. Charlotte's heart froze. What do you mean? The launch is next week. Everything we've worked for hinges on its success. Isaiah's voice was carefully controlled. Maybe I should step back, be less visible. Absolutely not, Charlotte said firmly. This is your business too now, your designs, your vision. Charlotte, Isaiah said gently, sometimes we have to be strategic. If my presence is going to hurt the boutique, then we'll find customers who don't care, Charlotte interrupted. Atlanta isn't just socialites and country club members. There are thousands of brides who would love our new line, who won't give a damn about what Blake Harris and his friends think. Isaiah seemed about to argue further when the boutique phone rang. Melissa answered, then held it out to Charlotte, her expression grave. "It's your father," she said. Charlotte took the phone, steeling herself. "Hello, Daddy." "This ends now," Richard Windsor said without preamble. "You've made your point, whatever it is. But you're embarrassing the family, Charlotte. Your mother can barely show her face at the club." "I'm sorry for that," Charlotte said, surprised to find she actually meant it. "But I'm not ending anything." "You meet me at my office in 1 hour," her father demanded. "Or I call in every favor I'm owed in this city. No vendor will work with you. No bank will extend credit. No bride will cross your threshold. Is that what you want?" Charlotte looked at Isaiah, who had heard enough of the conversation to understand its gravity. His eyes held a question, giving her permission to make the choice her father demanded. "I'll be there," Charlotte said finally. 1 hour. After she hung up, Isaiah approached her cautiously. "Charlotte, maybe you should consider—" "I'm not giving you up," she said firmly. "But I need to hear what he has to say. I need to try to make him understand." Isaiah nodded slowly. "Do you want me to come with you?" The offer touched her deeply. He would walk into the lion's den with her despite everything. "No, this is something I need to do alone." An hour later, Charlotte sat across from her father in his opulent office at Windsor Investments. Richard Windsor looked older than she remembered, the lines around his mouth deeper. "I hoped it wouldn't come to this," he began, "but you've left me no choice." Charlotte waited, her back straight, her resolve firm. "Your relationship with this person has become a liability to the Windsor name," Richard continued. "It ends today, or the consequences will be severe." "I love HM, Daddy," Charlotte said simply. Richard's expression flickered with something like pain before hardening again. "Love doesn't pay bills, Charlotte. Love doesn't maintain your position in society." "Maybe I don't want that position anymore." Her father leaned forward. "Listen carefully, I've prepared 2 documents. He slid a folder across the desk. "The first reinstates my investment in the boutique, settles the tax issue, and provides operating capital for the next 5 years. The second removes your access to your trust fund and revises my will to exclude you from any future inheritance." Charlotte stared at the folder, but didn't open it. "The choice is simple," Richard continued. "Sign the first document, agreeing to end all business and personal relationships with Isaiah Brooks, and your future is secure. Refuse, and sign the second. But understand what that means, Charlotte. Not just loss of money, but exclusion from our world. Permanently." The weight of the decision pressed on Charlotte like a physical thing. Everything she had been raised to value, security, status, family name, against her love for Isaiah and the person she was becoming with him. "You need to decide what matters more," her father said. "Your future, or a temporary infatuation with someone far beneath your station." Charlotte looked up at him, suddenly seeing clearly the prison of PR privilege she had lived in all her life. "He's not beneath me, Daddy. If anything, I've been trying to be worthy of him." Richard's expression hardened. "Then we have nothing more to discuss." Charlotte stood, leaving the folder untouched on his desk. "Yes, we do. I'm your daughter. Not an investment, not a Windsor asset. Your daughter. And I had hoped that might matter more than appearances." For a moment, she thought she saw uncertainty in her father's eyes, but it was gone quickly, replaced by cold resolve. "You have until the boutique launch next week to reconsider," he said. "After that, these terms are non-negotiable." Charlotte left her father's office with a heavy heart but a clear mind. The choice before her was devastating but simple: a life of privilege and security, or a life of love and integrity with Isaiah. When she returned to the boutique, Isaiah was waiting anxiously. "How did it go?" Charlotte told him everything: the ultimatum, the documents, the deadline. "He's given me until the launch to decide," she finished. Isaiah's face had grown increasingly troubled as she spoke. Charlotte, this is your entire future we're talking about. Your security. Our future, she corrected. And as for security, we're building that ourselves, aren't we? The boutique is starting to turn around. But without your family's connections, without their world, Isaiah paced the room. I never wanted you to have to choose. But I do have to choose, Charlotte said quietly, and I already have. She crossed to where he stood and took his hands in hers. Isaiah, before you came into my life, I had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. I was alone, shallow and lost. You showed me another way to be. Isaiah's eyes searched hers. I can't be the reason you lose everything. You're the reason I've found everything that matters, Charlotte countered. My father thinks he's offering me security, but what good is security without love, without respect for myself and the person I want to be? Isaiah pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, Charlotte whispered against his chest. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The week before the launch passed in a flurry of activity. Despite Tahi's social media storm, they had received several calls from brides interested in their affordable line. Not the society brides Charlotte had once catered to, but women who were drawn to the beautiful designs and reasonable prices. Charlotte didn't tell Isaiah, but she had begun looking at smaller spaces for the boutique, anticipating the need to downsize once her father's deadline passed. She had also listed her luxury apartment for sale and was considering the small loft above the boutique, as a temporary home. The night before the launch, they worked late, preparing the showroom for the next day's event. Charlotte had invited local fashion bloggers, several bridal magazines, and every bride-to-be they had contact information for. Whether any would show up remained to be seen. What if no one comes? She asked, voicing the fear that had been growing all week. Isaiah paused in arranging a display. Then we'll have a very quiet day to enjoy our beautiful gowns, he said with a small smile. And we'll try again and again until it works. His unshakable optimism filled her with renewed determination. You're right. This isn't just about tomorrow. It's about building something that lasts. Isaiah crossed to where she stood and took her in his arms. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember this. You are more than enough, Charlotte Windsor. With or without your family name, with or without this boutique, you are enough. The words touched something deep inside her, a place that had always been hungry for exactly this kind of affirmation. Not for her accomplishments or her beauty or her social status, but for herself. So are you, she whispered, lifting her face to his. More than enough. Their kiss sealed a promise neither needed to speak aloud. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. Later that night, as Isaiah was locking up, Charlotte made one last adjustment to the centerpiece gown, their first design together, now the showcase of their new collection. As she smoothed the satin skirt, she noticed a small envelope on the work table nearby. It was addressed simply, Charlotte. She recognized Isaiah's handwriting and picked it up, curious. But before she could open it, he returned from securing the front door. Ready to go? He asked. Charlotte slipped the envelope into her purse, deciding to read it later. Ready, she replied. They walked out together through the front door, no more service entrances for Isaiah, and into the warm Atlanta night toward whatever tomorrow would bring. Neither noticed the sleek black car parked across the street, or the man watching them from behind tinted windows. Richard Windsor sat alone, observing his daughter's obvious happiness with conflicted eyes. Then he picked up his phone and made a call that would change everything. Victoria, he said when his wife answered, we need to talk about Charlotte and about tomorrow. The morning of the launch, Charlotte woke early in her apartment. She had barely slept, her mind racing with thoughts of the day ahead. So much depended on this launch, not just the boutique's future but her own. By the end of today, she would have chosen her path forward, with or without her family's support. She dressed carefully in one of their new designs, a simple but elegant blue dress they had created as part of a bridesmaid's collection. It felt right to wear something they had made together. As she gathered her things to leave, Charlotte remembered the envelope from Isaiah. She had been too exhausted to read it last night, She pulled it from her purse and sat on the edge of her bed to open it. Inside was a single page of Isaiah's neat handwriting. "Charlotte, whatever happens tomorrow, know that you have already succeeded where it matters most. You have found your voice, your vision, and your courage. The woman I met 2 months ago would never have risked everything for something she believed in, or for someone like me. I have never known anyone as brave as you. Watching you transform from the person who once told me to keep the floor clean to the woman who stands beside me as an equal has been the greatest privilege of my life. You were always good enough, I just wasn't. But loving you has made me better. Whatever tomorrow brings, that won't change. All my love, Isaiah." Tears welled in Charlotte's eyes as she read the words again. There was something about the letter that felt like goodbye, and it filled her with sudden apprehension. She tried calling Isaiah, but he didn't answer. He was probably already at the boutique preparing for the launch. We and Charlotte arrived at Windsor Bridal an hour later. She was surprised to find the light still off and the door locked. Isaiah was always early, especially on important days. She let herself in, calling his name, but the boutique was empty. On her desk was another envelope, the same stationery as the one from last night. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. "Charlotte, by the time you read this, I will be gone. Not because I want to leave, but because I must. Last night after I left you, your father contacted me. He offered me a choice: leave Atlanta voluntarily or watch as he systematically destroyed not just your boutique, but any chance of your professional survival in this city. He showed me what he was capable of. The tax investigation, the vendor problems, those were just warnings. He can do much worse, and he will unless I remove myself from your life. I know you would tell me to stay and fiunked, that we can face anything together. And part of me believes that's true, but I can't be the reason you lose everything, your business, your name, your future. You have a chance to rebuild your relationship with your family, to secure your boutique's future. Please take it, not for me, but for yourself and for all the brides who need what only you can create. I'm leaving my designs with you. Use them. Build something beautiful. Know that wherever I am, I will be thinking of you, loving you, believing in you. You taught me what it means to be seen, truly seen for who I am. For that gift, I will be forever grateful. Always." Isaiah. Charlotte sank into her chair, the letter clutched in her hand. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Isaiah was gone. Her father had gone behind her back, threatening Isaiah directly, using his love for her as a weapon against him. The pain was physical, a crushing weight on her chest. But beneath it, something else was building, a fury unlike anything she had ever felt before. The boutique phone rang, startling her. She answered automatically. "Charlotte, darling." Her mother's voice was artificially bright. "Your father and I have been talking, and we've decided to attend your little event today after all. Won't that be lovely? We'll bring the Harrises and the Prestons. I've already called them." Charlotte's grip tightened onto her phone. "You knew," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You knew Daddy went to Isaiah." A pause. "It was for the best, Charlotte. That man was taking advantage of you, using your vulnerable state to—" "His name is Isaiah," Charlotte interrupted, her voice rising. "And he just sacrificed his own happiness to save my future. Tell me, Mother, when have you or Daddy ever done the same?" "Don't be dramatic," Victoria said dismissively. "We'll see you at noon. Wear something appropriate, please." The line went dead, and Charlotte slammed the phone down. Her parents thought they had won. They believed that with Isaiah gone, she would meekly return to their world, grateful for their conditional acceptance. They had never been more wrong. Charlotte looked around the boutique, at the gowns they had designed together, at the dreams they had built. She couldn't let it end like this. She wouldn't. She picked up her phone and dialed Melissa. "I need your help," she said when her assistant answered. "And I need you to be completely honest. Do you know where Isaiah lives?" There was a hesitation on the other end. "Yes," Melissa admitted. "He gave me his address for the employee files." "I need it," Charlotte said. "Now." 20 minutes later, Charlotte was knocking on the door of a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood across town. No answer. She knocked again, louder. The door across the hall opened, and an elderly woman peered out. "He's not there," she said. "Left early this morning with 2 suitcases. Said something about catching a bus. Charlotte's heart sank. Did he say where he was going? The woman shook her head. Just that he was leaving town. Shame too. He was a good neighbor, always helped me with my groceries. Charlotte thanked her and hurried back to her car. The bus station. There was still a chance. The Atlanta bus terminal was crowded with travelers. Charlotte scanned the departure board frantically. There were buses leaving for dozens of cities in the next few hours. How would she ever find him? She approached the information desk where a bored-looking clerk was scrolling on his phone. "Excuse me," she said breathlessly. "I need to find someone who might be taking a bus today. It's an emergency." The clerk barely looked up. "Can't give a short passenger information, ma'am, privacy policy." Charlotte fought back tears of frustration. "Please, I'm not asking for a list. Just tell me if there's a bus leaving soon for—" She hesitated, trying to think where Isaiah might go. Where had he mentioned having connections? Then it came to her. His import business had specialized in textiles from West Africa. He had family roots there. "Is there a bus to New York today?" she asked. "From New York, he could catch an international flight." The clerk glanced at his screen. "Next one leaves in 20 minutes. Gate 7. Charlotte rushed through the terminal, scanning the faces in the crowded waiting areas. At Gate 7, a small group of passengers was already lining up to board, and there, sitting alone with 2 suitcases at his feet, was Isaiah. "Isaiah!" Charlotte called, pushing past annoyed travelers. He looked up, shock registering on his face as he saw her. "Charlotte, what are you doing here?" She reached him, breathless and disheveled, not caring who was watching. "You can't leave," she said. "Not like this." Isaiah stood, his expression pained. "Charlotte, you don't understand. Your father—" "I know what my father did," she interrupted. "I read your letter." "Then you know why I have to go. He'll destroy everything you've worked for." Charlotte shook her head fiercely. "No, he won't, because I won't let him, and neither will you if you— Stay and fight with me." Isaiah looked torn, glancing at the bus now boarding behind them. "Charlotte, I can't be the reason you lose your family, your security." "You're not the reason," she said firmly. "I'm choosing this. I'm choosing us." She reached into her purse and pulled out his letter from the night before. "You wrote that I was brave. Prove that you believe it. Let me be brave enough for both of us." Isaiah's eyes held hers, conflicted, and anguished. "Your father has power in this city. So do I," Charlotte said. "I'm still a Windsor, and it's time I used that name for something that matters." The final boarding call for the bus echoed through the terminal. Isaiah looked at the gate, then back at Charlotte. "What about the launch?" he asked. A slow smile spread across Charlotte's face. "That's exactly what I was thinking. Are you with me?" For a moment he hesitated. Then his expression cleared. Decision made. "Always." They raced back to the boutique, arriving just as Melissa was turning on the lights and arranging fresh flowers. "Thank God," she exclaimed when she saw Isaiah. "I was afraid you'd really left." "He almost did," Charlotte replied, squeezing his hand. "But we have a launch to prepare for, and I'm making some changes to the plan." For the next hour, they worked frantically, Charlotte directing their efforts with a new sense of purpose. She made calls, sent emails, rearranged the showroom. Isaiah watched her with growing admiration as she transformed from the uncertain woman of weeks past to a commander marshalling her forces. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, as they put the finishing touches on the display. Charlotte nodded firmly. "More sure than I've ever been about anything." At exactly noon, the first guests began to arrive. Not the society crowd Charlotte had once catered to, but the fashion bloggers she had invited, several local journalists, and, to her surprise, a number of brides who had heard about their affordable new line through social media. Charlotte greeted each one personally, Isaiah at her side, both of them explaining the vision behind their designs, beautiful, well-made gowns that any bride could afford. The response was enthusiastic, with several brides booking appointments on the spot. At 12:30, the boutique door opened, and Richard and Victoria Windsor entered, followed by the Harrises, the Prestons, and several other couples from their social circle. They stopped short at the sight of Isaiah standing beside Charlotte, greeting guests. Charlotte saw the moment her father recognized him, watched as Richard's face darkened with anger. She squeezed Isaiah's hand and moved forward to meet her parents. "Mother, Daddy," she said coolly, "welcome to the lounge." Victoria looked around with poorly disguised disdain. "Charlotte, what is the meaning of this, and why is he still here?" "Isaiah is my business partner and the co-designer of our new line," Charlotte replied, her voice carrying clearly through the now quiet showroom. "And my boyfriend," she added, watching her father's expression grow thunderous. "We had an agreement," Richard said in a low, dangerous voice. "He was to leave town." "No, Daddy," Charlotte corrected. "You and Isaiah had an agreement, one made under duress and without my knowledge. It's null and void." The Harrises and Prestons were watching the exchange with avid interest, clearly sensing the drama unfolding. "Charlotte," her father warned, "you're making a scene." "Actually," Charlotte said, raising her voice slightly, "I'm making an announcement." She turned to address the entire room, which had fallen silent. "I want to thank everyone for coming today to the launch of our new line, but this is more than just a new collection. It's a new beginning for Windsor Bridal." Charlotte moved to stand beside Isaiah, taking his hand firmly in hers. "From today, we will be known as Windsor and Brooks Bridal Design. Isaiah and I are full partners in this venture, combining his experience in business and design with my background in bridal fashion." A murmur went through the crowd. Victoria gasped audibly, while Richard's face went from red to nearly purple. "Furthermore," Charlotte continued, her voice steady, "we're expanding our vision. Windsor and Brooks will create gowns for every bride, at every price point, because we believe that every woman deserves to feel beautiful on her wedding day, regardless of her budget." Several of the brides in attendance applauded, along with the fashion bloggers who were furiously taking notes. Charlotte turned to her parents. "You taught me to build empires, Daddy, and I am. But Isaiah taught me how to care for people. Together, we're building something better than either of us could create alone." Richard stepped forward, his voice low and threatening. "You're making a terrible mistake, Charlotte. One that will cost you everything." Charlotte met his gaze steadily. "No, Daddy. For the first time in my life, I'm not making a mistake. I'm making a choice. My choice." She turned back to the crowd. "Please enjoy the champagne and the displays. Isaiah and I are available to answer any questions about our designs." As the crowd dispersed, moving toward the refreshment table and the gown displays, Charlotte led Isaiah to a quiet corner of the showroom. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his eyes. "I'm better than okay," she replied. "I'm free." Isaiah glanced toward her parents, who were huddled with the Harris ES, clearly plotting their next move. "They won't give up easily." "I know," Charlotte acknowledged. "My father will try to make things difficult for us, but we're stronger together. And I meant what I said. This is my choice, Isaiah. You're my choice." Isaiah's eyes softened as he looked at her. "Windsor and Brooks," he said, testing the name on his tongue. "It has a nice ring to it." "I thought so," Charlotte smiled, "but only if you want it. This is your decision too." Isaiah's answer was interrupted by the approach of a young woman in a simple sundress, looking shyly at one of their designs. "Excuse me," she said, "is this really only $800? It's so beautiful." Charlotte moved to her side. "It is. Would you like to try it on?" As the young woman nodded enthusiastically, Charlotte caught Isaiah's eye over her shoulder. His smile told her everything she needed to know. Whatever came next, the why would face it together. The rest of the launch passed in a blur of activity. Charlotte's parents left abruptly after her announcement, taking their friends with them. But for every society matron who departed, 2 young brides entered, drawn by the social media buzz that was already building around their affordable collection. By the end of the day, they had booked 15 appointments and sold 3 gowns off the rack, more business than the boutique had seen in weeks. "I'd call that a success," Isaiah said as they locked up that evening. Charlotte leaned against him, exhausted but happy. "Better than I expected. Did you see my father's face when I announced the name change?" Isaiah chuckled. "I thought he might have a stroke right there." "He'll try to fight us," Charlotte said more seriously. "The tax issue, the vendors, the bank loans, he has influence everywhere. Let him try, Isaiah replied. We'll find a way. They walked to the back office where Charlotte collapsed into her chair. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm almost relieved that the trust fund and inheritance are gone. At least he can't hold those over me anymore. Isaiah sat across from her, his expression thoughtful. About that. There's something I need to tell you. Charlotte looked up, concerned by his serious tone. What is it? After I got your father's threats last night, I made some calls to an old friend, a lawyer I worked with when I had my import business. I wanted to know if your father could really do what he was threatening. And? Charlotte prompted when he paused. Your trust fund? The one from your grandparents? Your father can't touch it. It was set up to be irrevocable. Even if he tried to challenge it in court, the terms are clear. When you turn 30, that money is yours, no conditions. Charlotte stared at him. Are you sure? Isaiah nodded. My friend was very clear. Richard Windsor may control his own money, but not your trust. And while he can change his will regarding his personal assets, certain family properties and investments are entailed. They pass to you regardless. A slow smile spread across Charlotte's face. So all his threats were partly bluffs, Isaiah confirmed. He can make things difficult for the boutique, but he can't cut you off compultelli, not legally. Charlotte leaned back in her chair, processing this information. Why didn't you tell me this before? I only found out late last night, Isaiah explained, and by then I had convinced myself that leaving was still the right thing to do, to protect you from the social fallout if nothing else. I'm glad you were wrong, Charlotte said softly. So am I, Isaiah admitted. When I saw you at the bus station calling my name, I've never been so happy to have my plans disrupted. Charlotte rose and moved around the desk, settling onto his lap. No more running away, she said, wrapping her arms around his neck. Whatever my father throws at us, we face it together. Together, Isaiah agreed, pulling her closer. Their kiss was a promise, sealed in the quiet of the boutique they had saved together. The weeks that followed were not easy. As predicted, Richard Windsor did everything in his power to complicate their business dealings. Vendors suddenly required cash up front. Their small business loan application was denied. The building's landlord, a golf buddy of Richard's, threatened not to renew their lease. But for every obstacle Richard created, Charlotte and Isaiah found a solution. They sourced new vendors. They took pre-orders and used the deposits to fund production. When the lease issue arose, they found a smaller, more affordable SP, Hayes in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Through it all, their partnership, both professional and personal, only grew stronger. Isaiah moved in with Charlotte, both of them laughing as they packed up her luxury apartment for the much smaller loft above their new boutique location. From penthouse to garret, Charlotte joked, as they carried boxes up the narrow stairs. My mother would be horrified. Are you? Isaiah asked, setting down a heavy box. Charlotte low-oaked around the small but charming space. Exposed brick walls, large windows, just enough room for the two of them. Not at all, she said honestly. This feels more like home than anywhere I've ever lived. 3 months after the launch, Windsor & Brooks Bridal Design opened in its new location. The space was smaller, but it was theirs, fully paid for with the profits from their affordable line and a small loan from Charlotte's personal savings. On opening day, they were surprised when a sleek town car pulled up outside. Victoria Windsor emerged, looking uncomfortable but determined. Mother, Charlotte said cautiously when Victoria entered the boutique. This is unexpected. Victoria glanced around the new space, her expression unreadable. It's different, she said finally. Yes, Charlotte agreed. It is. An awkward silence fell between them. Isaiah, who had been helping a bride in the fitting area, approached cautiously. Mrs. Windsor, he said politely, would you like some tea? We have a small sitting area in the back. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him perhaps for the first time. Yes, she said after a moment, that would be acceptable. In the small office that doubled as a break room, Victoria sat stiffly on the edge of a chair, teacup balanced on her knee. Your father doesn't know I'm here, she said abruptly. He would be furious. Charlotte waited, sensing there was more to come. But I wanted to see for myself, Victoria continued. This business you've built. this life you've chosen. She glanced at Isaiah, who stood quietly beside Charlotte. This man you've chosen. And? Charlotte prompted, when her mother fell silent. Victoria sighed, a small crack appearing in her perfect facade. And I see that you're happy, truly happy in a way I'm not sure I've ever seen before. The admission clearly cost her, but she continued. Your father and I have been married for 35 years. In all that time I've never defied him openly, never challenged his decisions. That was our way. She looked at Charlotte, something like regret in her eyes. But watching you these past months, standing your ground, building something of your own, I've wondered what my life might have been if I'd had half your courage. Charlotte was stunned. In all 27 years, she had never heard her mother speak so candidly. Daddy will never forgive me, Charlotte said quietly. Perhaps not, Victoria acknowledged. He's a proud man, but he's also a businessman, and from what I hear, Windsor & Brooks is becoming quite successful. Charlotte exchanged a surprised glance with Isaiah. You've been keeping tabs on us? A hint of a smile touched Victoria's lips. I may be old-fashioned, Charlotte, but I'm not uninformed. Your designs were featured in Bride's magazine last month. There was a waiting list for your spring collection. These things get noticed. She set down her teacup and stood. I should go, but I wanted you to have this. From her purse, she withdrew an envelope and handed it to Charlotte. Inside was a check, a very substantial check. Mother, I can't accept this, Charlotte said, trying to hand it back. It's not from me, Victoria said. It's from your grandmother's estate, a small portion that was set aside specifically for you, separate from the trust fund. It's yours, regardless of your father's wishes. Charlotte stared at the check, then at her mother. Why now? Because you've proven you don't need it, Victoria said simply, which means you'll use it wisely. She turned to Isaiah, studying him with new eyes. Take care of her, she said. But I suspect I don't need to tell you that. No, ma'am, Isaiah replied quietly. You don't. Victoria nodded once, then leaned forward and placed a light kiss on Charlotte's cheek, the most maternal gesture she had offered in years. I'll see myself out, she said, moving toward the door. Then she paused, looking back at them. Your autumn collection? Perhaps you might save one of the mother of the bride dresses for me, just in case. After she left, Charlotte and Isaiah stood in stunned silence. Did my mother just give us her blessing? Charlotte finally asked. Isaiah squeezed her hand. I think that was as close as Victoria Windsor gets to saying she was wrong. And the comment about the mother of the bride dress? Charlotte looked up at him, hope blooming in her eyes. Isaiah smiled, pulling her into his arms. I think that was her way of saying she'll be there. When the time comes, Charlotte repeated softly, resting her head against his chest. I liked the sound of that. 6 months later, on a perfect spring evening, Charlotte stood by the window of the boutique, watching as the sun set over the Atlanta skyline. Windsor & Brooks' bridal design was closed for the day, but the lights still glowed warmly inside. On a mannequin in the center of the showroom stood her most personal creation yet, a wedding gown of simple elegance, designed with Isaiah's input for a very special bride, herself. The bell above the door chimed, and Charlotte turned to see Isaiah entering with 2 cups of coffee, a ritual they had maintained since those early days of saving the boutique. Nervous? He asked, handing her a cup. Charlotte shook her head, smiling. Not at all. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Isaiah set down his coffee and drew her into his arms. Have I told you today that I love you? Yes, Charlotte laughed, but I never get tired of hearing it. Outside, cars began pulling up. Their guests were arriving for the intimate engagement party they had planned, friends they had made in the bridal industry, loyal clients, Melissa, and the boutique staff. And yes, Victoria Windsor would be there, though Richard had declined the invitation. Ready to face your mother? Isaiah asked as they watched her town car arrive. Charlotte nodded. Ready to face anything, as long as we're together. As they moved to greet their first guests, Charlotte caught sight of the small work table in the corner, where it all began, where a proud boutique owner and a quiet janitor had first started to see each other as they truly were. The journey hadn't been easy. There were still battles to fight, bridges to build. Her father remained estranged, though Victoria reported he occasionally asked about the business. Some doors in Atlanta society remained closed to them, but new doors had opened, opportunities they never would have found in Charlotte's old world. Their affordable line had expanded to bridesmaid dresses and mother-of-the-bride ensembles. A major department store had approached them about a diffusion line, and every day brides left their boutique feeling beautiful and valued, regardless of their budget. As Isaiah greeted Victoria at the door, awkward but trying, Charlotte felt a profound gratitude wash over her, for the boutique's near failure that had brought them together, for Isaiah's quiet strength that had helped her find her own, for every moment that had led them here. "You look happy," Melissa commented, appearing at her side with a glass of champagne. "It suits you." Charlotte smiled, watching as Isaiah made his way back to her, his eyes never leaving hers. "I am happy," she said simply, "more than I ever thought possible." When he reached her, Isaiah took her hand, squeezing it gently. In his eyes, Charlotte saw everything she had ever wanted but never known how to find: respect, partnership, and a love that asked for nothing but her. True self, it was more than enough, it was everything.